Welcome to day one of our 3-day live IG Diastasis Recti series. I am LaShonda and I am super glad that you all are here. Manira will be joining me really soon, so I know everybody's so excited, especially my moms with Diastasis Recti. Welcome. Come on in, say hello. Manira should be joining us really soon. Day one today, we're going to be talking about how to engage your lower, middle, and upper TA. So I know you moms are excited. Hello. Welcome. I'm going to put the title here. Manira is here. Hey. So let me just tag this title here so everyone knows what we're talking about as they come in. All right, awesome. So Manira, I saw you pop in, so let me find you. And hello, everybody. Welcome. So we're just waiting for her to pop on with us. Hey. Yes, the live will be saved. It will be in my IGTV. Yes, can you please save this to your highlights? It will be saved to our IGTV. Hey, says everyone will be able to access it. Let's see here. Manira, do you see a request to join the live? You're welcome. Making sure I'm not missing anything from her. If you see a request, Manira, just click that request here. Let's see. I'm going to send you a request now, so hopefully it will come to your end. So this is always the fun part. There she is.
There we go.
Hello.
Hi. Oh, I'm so excited.
We are
to do this.
so excited. You're so excited.
Yeah.
So basically, I kind of gave the intro. Basically, today is day one of our 3-day series. Manira and I, we're just super excited. We're both physios. We both have a love for diastasis recti. For myself, I'm a mom of 2. I had it. Manira, she's like the expert guru, researching, doing amazing things out there. So today, we just want to kind of break it all down for mom who may have been feeling stuck, who may not really know kind of what to do, what not to do, that type of thing. Just give you some clarity specifically around the lower, middle, and upper TA and getting those muscles to engage, right? So Manira is going to be actually talking about some anatomy of the TA muscles. When we say TA, we're referring to the transverse abdominis muscles. So she's going to be going over some anatomy. So I'm going to kind of let her take the floor. At the end, make sure you stay to the end if you can. If you cannot, then this IG live will be on my IGTV. We will have a little homework for you all at the end because we don't want it just to be a, sit and just talk and hear us talking, but give you all active things to begin working on so that you all can start seeing progress towards your diastasis. All right? So Manira, you have the floor.
How amazing is it to do this? So thank you, everybody, for joining in, and yeah, we'll definitely cover that topic in detail today. We're going to also aim to keep it around 30 minutes so that short and concise. It'll really put a bit of pressure on us because we can talk about diastasis for a long time.
Exactly.
So but regarding the TA muscle is a muscle that I find is not being, I guess, loaded enough and strengthened enough. We do spend a lot of time in learning how to engage it. But I find that beyond the engagement, there is a lot of work to do. But before we get into the strengthening, we really should learn what this muscle does, how it operates in the body, what it's designed to do, so that we can take advantage of that. And we can use that later on once we begin strengthening it. But this topic was how to better engage the lower, middle, and upper TA. So really, this muscle, the TA muscle, it's a very large sheet, it's a flat sheet of muscle that wraps around the entire midsection. So really all the way from the back to the front, and it really just, it continues on into the back. It forms connective tissue in the front, and it actually forms connective tissue in the back. So we've got this muscular and connective tissue structure that we want to work when we are in the postpartum period. And so this muscle, it is divided into 3 separate regions. We have a lower TA region, a middle TA region, and an upper TA region. And this is important to know because it sort of gives us a way to somewhat target certain regions of the abdomen and of that muscle when we're doing like our core strengthening and core rebuilding later on. So let's say you have a particular area that you're not too strengthened in, connected to as of yet. Well, knowing that there are different regions, we can certainly bias what we're doing to that region to really help become more specific. And so that's why knowing that there's lower, middle, and upper can be very helpful. And also knowing how to engage these areas can be very helpful. And so the lower TA, just in case I'm not glossing over it here, the lower TA, so if this is my hips, these are my hips right here, and I basically form a line to the center. Below that is the lower TA, okay? And so between the hips and the rib cage, in that section there, that's the middle TA. And then between the rib cage up to the breastbone here, the sternum, that triangle, that is the upper TA. So the way the muscle is designed, the fibers of this muscle, for the most part, they run in a straight line. So basically what that means for us is when we're contracting this muscle, what it ends up doing is it draws the abdomen inwards. If this is the spine and this is the abdomen here, when the TA contracts, it draws inwards the whole abdomen. Now, sometimes postpartum, that can be hard to do for many reasons. Okay, one of the reasons is because maybe the muscle is weakened, maybe the connective tissue is just at a place where it's not really able to contribute to that. And also maybe there's just not a connection to that muscle yet either that you have to develop. So there's many other reasons as well, but really sometimes doing that inwards motion can be quite challenging for a lot of people. Yep. And sometimes, and actually most often, there's usually one area that is easier than the other and one area that's actually harder than the other for some people. So some people might be able to engage, let's say, the lower abdomen quite well, but not really so much into the middle and not so much into the upper. So, or it could be the reverse, where the upper part of the abdomen, when you try to engage the lower, it's actually only upper that comes on. So what we're trying to do here is seeing if we can provide a new strategy for our core that we can use when we're doing exercises later on that strengthen it. So we want to get a strategy that could, if we're trying to get the TA working, well, we can use a strategy that helps the lower TA to draw in, the middle TA to draw in, and the upper, and not one of the areas overtaking the other, just to get it all sort of smoothly and easily to draw inwards. Now, that is easier said than done.
And some are better visually than others. Like it just comes together like magic. Yep.
Yes, exactly. So, and that's where I guess like the cues will come in handy. So I find just knowing what the muscle does, knowing that when it contracts, you know, depending on where we're starting from, maybe if the abdominal wall is a little bit out to here, if it's out there, when the TA contracts, it will draw it inwards. So depending on how far out, let's say, that you're starting from, you will have more movement, you will see more, versus if you're starting with an abdominal wall that's a bit more closer towards you. But in the end, the net result of the contraction is to sort of reduce the overall circumference of the waist and to draw inwards. So hence, any cues that I tend to use, I find, are the ones that encourage the drawing in of the abdomen. Yeah, and so for that reason also, standing and upright positions are the best positions to see this, to do this, to practice this in, because in some positions you just can't see what you're doing. If the muscle is designed to draw inwards and you're practicing while you're lying on your back, well, then you really don't have any idea if you're getting any of that motion. So an alternate position instead would be to do it in side lying, because you'll still be able to see it. So being able to observe that is very, very useful.
Yes, absolutely. Awesome, 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 awesome. So our part 2 is going to be more demonstration of exactly what Manira just went over, right? And so that's the part where, for women, I feel like can be a little bit hazy, but I think the way that you described it, Manira, is exactly that. Sometimes you will see your upper abdominals firing first, and if you can see that and learning, okay, what we're explaining here, it should happen from the bottom up. Okay, what should I feel? What am I looking for? That type of thing. So we're going to go over that. So for anyone that wants to do this with me, by all means, we love this to be interactive. You can stand up with me. I'm going to do this in standing. And Manira just basically kind of went over why that's important, right? We stand most of the day. We're not lying down unless we're sleeping, right? So when we're lifting our babies, when we're working a lot of times, when we're moving around the kitchen, lifting laundry baskets, just daily life, we're up. So we want to be able to feel that engagement when we're in standing, when we're in sitting, and being able to connect with our bodies in that way, all right? So that's what I'm going to do next. So anybody, again, if you want to join me, you can. So what I want to do is start with first, just kind of rewinding the track a little bit, is just being able to feel that connection first. So sometimes we get kind of jump ahead of everything and just jump right into exercise, wanting to add bands and balls. This particular session, we're talking about just feeling it, using our hand, being connected with your body, having a sense of awareness of your own body, and then being able to add on top of that. So that's what we're going to be going over today. So I'm going to stand up. Let me know if you cannot see me or anything like that. I'm going to try to make this as visually easy as possible here. All right. All right. So first things first, you all okay to kind of cut my head off, because the main things is the concentration here, okay? Main things first is making sure that you're in good positioning, okay? So if you're doing this with me, you're going to try to find your pubic bone, all right? So you're going to place your fingers on your pubic bone, and then your ASIS is going to be the bony part of your pelvis here. So if you're feeling around, you're going to feel for these bones here. In your pubic bone, it's just going to be right here, all right? So if you place kind of a triangle in that way, you want to try to be in good alignment, because if you're here where your bottom's kind of sticking out, your pubic bone is lower here and your hands are more up, then you're going to be in a more anterior pelvic tilt position, which is going to make firing that core more. You see that it's placing a lot of anterior pressure here in your abdominal area, so it's going to make it difficult to fire, all right? So you want to make sure positioning-wise we're in a good position to engage and feel the engagement of the muscles, all right? Next, being here, if you're tucked under, you can hopefully see here that my pubic bone is higher up here, my hands are back lower. So you just want to find a good neutral position when you're trying to engage those muscles, all right? So just finding a good alignment. We don't have to worry about being perfect in that. Just try to find a nice, good alignment there. So also your rib cage will be stacked over your pelvis. That's just a good place of alignment just to get the muscles to engage. Because again, trying to get muscles down here to fire, very difficult when you're really in a standing position like this. So hopefully that makes sense, okay? So we're just gonna be in a good firing position in neutral like so, okay? Next, what you want to do, So I'm going to basically kind of go over the lower first, then we're going to kind of touch on the middle and then the upper, all right? So lower first, like Mira was saying, you're going to find your ASIS, and so lower is going to be here, all right? The common mistake that happens when people try to engage their lower first is that they try to do it, well, just any engagement periods, just try to suck in, all right? So there's no breath connected to that. Let me just try to bring it up a little bit. There's no breath connected to you just sucking in. You're just pulling in muscle, all right? So if that be the case, you're not going to engage that lower TA properly. So we want to connect with our breath being like this. Or a ha breath, more like a all right? So with that, we're gonna be here on below here. You're gonna place your hands on that ASIS and then right in this area here to feel that lower TA. So cue-wise, my cue for most of my clients and people to help them not engage their internal oblique, which is larger muscles that connect to like this. We don't want those internal obliques firing over those lower, deeper core muscles. So you have your external muscles that fire over, or more superficial. Sometimes they're often mistaken as your lower TA muscles, all right? So if you're trying to get those muscles to fire, you should see, like Manera was saying, a drawing in. Is that good positioning, Manera? Can you
yeah, that was beautiful. Yeah, you could absolutely
see. Exactly. You want to see, and you want it to be gentle, all right? So a lot of times you will hear PTs, you will hear say a big, loud, audible exhale. I find for the lower TA, it's just the engagement of that pelvic floor first, and that's going to connect you to that lower first, okay? So if you try the big, loud, audible exhale, a lot of times you will feel that internal oblique kicking in, and what that's going to, the difference between the two is when you get this to come in and draw in with that breath, it's going to feel like a sinking in here at the pubic bone, okay? So hopefully that makes sense. It's going to sink in. If the internal oblique, those bigger movers are kicking in, it's going to feel like a bulging out against your hand. I'm being kind of dramatic. It's not going to be that big, but it's going to be more like a push up into your hand, if you can see my hand kind of moving here. And that's going to be even with the exhale. If you kick it in too fast and too hard, you're going to feel those muscles kick in versus that nice light sinking in by just squeezing, like a light kegel and a lift. It should be more of a sinking in type of a feel, okay? So that's where your lower TA is. A little bit harder to explain in standing, but we want to explain that in standing so that you all can understand it. So again, pelvic neutral, finding that lower TA, feeling that sinking in, and those muscles should draw in as you're coming in. Right now I'm kind of sucking because I'm talking, but and you should see that lower TA firing and coming in, okay? Any questions on that? Everybody good there? Hopefully. Has there been any questions, or we've been good?
I've been looking at the scroll, and it seems like
okay.
They're okay.
Everybody's kind of catching it. Great. Okay. All right. As for the middle TA, all right, that's going to be more belly button coming in. Okay. So a common mistake with that oftentimes is just sucking in, right? So that means your belly button's just coming in. All right. So if you're feeling tactile wise for the difference between your middle TA coming in versus you just sucking in, you're going to feel a hardening of these muscles. So if you try it with me, just suck in. If you do that, all of this is going to feel like a bulge out. It's just going to be tight muscles up under your hand. You're not going to feel any sinking in. Yes, your tummy's coming in, which is why that's the common misconception behind that, because yes, my tummy's coming in, but my TA muscles underneath, those deep muscles, are kind of being shut off and being overridden by all these external muscles that's just drawing in. They're not being connected to your breath at all. It's just really, you're just sucking in, all right? So again, no breath, tummy comes in. Breath, navel draws in is the cue, and then you should feel in your hand a sinking in, and you should see a visual coming in of the muscles, okay? So again, that's from your ASIS up to your rib cage, and then getting those muscles under your rib cage. Then you have to be more cognizant of those external obliques, okay? So now we're more in the upper region here, up under here. These big movers, your external obliques, those are your outer primary mover muscles, okay? So when you bring your rib cage down and in, so all together when it comes together is here, lower coming in, middle coming in, upper rib cage down and in. You don't want to jam it, because if you do, those external obliques kick in, you're gonna see a bulging out. So that's where a lot of women have a lower belly cooch here, because those external obliques are such big primary movers, and they're often mistaken and overused. So I see that with a lot of like Pilates instructors. No offense to my Pilates instructors. I've seen so many Pilates instructors coming in learning about this, so that is absolutely awesome. But then a lot of this right here will cause the pooching of the lower belly, just firing wise, and so it will kind of put pressure down, which will also put pressure down in your pelvic floor. And you'll also notice that when you're doing in your lower TA engagement, if you're not doing it correctly, you may feel pressure down in your pelvic floor area, which means that you're not getting the air out when you're exhaling, and the air is going down into your pelvic floor, and you're feeling pressure there. So if you feel that, then you want to make some corrections there by your form, your breathing, making sure that you're not using those other muscles and that you're getting those deep core muscles to fire. Okay?
Yeah, and so another thing that I was just going to mention is that when we're utilizing the TA, because I know a lot of people tend to overthink it. I mean,
yeah.
Of course, this is a deep muscle. You can't see it, and we're trying to build a connection to it. So it really becomes a thinking exercise more than like a strengthening, you know, fun kind of exercise.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, and so what I find is that because all of these muscles, they sort of layer up on top of each other, that it's hard to determine when the TA muscle has in fact turned on versus like internal oblique versus external oblique. And one of the things that I found so fascinating just in doing more research and kind of digging into all of the engagement stuff is that typically when the TA muscle comes on, all of the other muscles are going to come on as well.
Absolutely.
Really is no way to isolate the TA from the rest. So when anyone is practicing this, it's okay that you're seeing the other muscles come on or potentially feeling more tension in certain, it's okay. So that's just the strategy that your body is using. What we're trying to do is kind of develop a way to use the muscles that is a bit different than what it's currently doing, because that way we can offer the body a new way, a way that biases the TA muscle that we are going to try to strengthen anyways after you learn how to engage it. And so when you're going in and you're looking and you're feeling, I would just say everything that like you just talked about, do all of that in addition to simply watching for that drawing in. In the end result, if you see that your abdomen has now pulled in from where it was, you know the TA has come on to help with that. So there you have absolutely work the TA in that moment. But I do have some additional visuals. Did you want me to pull those up as well?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, let me see if I can do this here. Okay.
So are you pulling up your post?
Yeah, so I'm trying to
see so Manira is pulling up a post of a patient that she was working with. I'm going to talk while so you can focus on what she's doing there. But she's going to pull up a post of a patient she was working with specifically on what we were just talking about. All right. And the patient does it beautifully. I feel much better than myself.
Is there a way for me to turn the camera the other way?
Well, yeah, on my end, there's a little circle button, like a little round.
Yeah, like on my end, I don't actually see that, but I'm going to try.
Okay. Maybe if you just turn your camera to your computer. No, you can't. Or let you're on your laptop, right? Are you on your laptop?
Yeah, I'm going to try to turn the camera around, okay?
Okay.
So we'll see if I can get that properly. view. Hang on one sec. There we go.
Yep, perfect.
Sorry.
It's kind of cricket. There we go.
So I'm going to press play. I'm literally standing behind my computer right now, so I have no idea where my cursor is. There it is. Okay, so what you're going to see here is that she's drawn in the whole abdomen, and now she's releasing it. And she's going to do it again. She's drawing in the lower, the middle, and the upper abdomen.
Yep.
And then she's releasing it. Okay, so that is exactly what LaShonda was showing, is that you get a drawing in action.
I think Munira got stuck. Hopefully she'll come back in just a second. But basically what you were basically seeing was the patient drawing in their lower, their middle, and then their upper, all right, which is a very good one. So if you follow Munira, there is a post on February the 9th or the 6th, I can't remember, of 2019. That's exactly what she was showing there. Oh, I think I lost her. Is everybody else still here? If you can see me and hear me, then give me some hearts, just so I know this whole live didn't just leave me. So if you're still here, give me some hearts, and I can see if I can get her back. Everybody still here? Give me hearts, so let me know, so I know I don't need to end this. Yes, thank you guys. Thank you, appreciate that. All right, trying to get her back on. I think her switching up her camera just kind of threw her off. Hopefully this has been helpful so far. Thank you for the hearts and the love, yay. All right, let's see if we can get her back. If you all have any questions while we're trying to get her back on, by all means, feel free to ask them, because I am watching. I'm kind of looking at the comments while her thing is kind of spinning around. Let's see here. I'm going to go out and try to bring her back in. Good old social media. All right, 1 second. There she is. Send the request. You can see her? Okay, awesome. Yay, you're back. Awesome. Okay, awesome.
Okay, so
okay, awesome. These are good. All good feedback. Yeah, I was just pretty much telling them where they can find that post that you were doing, and that if they had any questions to just ask. But we're good. We're back in action. So go ahead, pick up where you left off.
Oh, okay. So so that's basically what we really wanted to, I guess, make sure that people got out of this, is to really just know what the TA does. It draws in the abdomen. If there's 3 areas, there's lower, middle, and upper. So potentially we are able to draw in lower, middle, and upper. Why do we want to do that? Because we are trying to connect to this TA muscle that also has been stretched out in pregnancy. And potentially even before being pregnant, you may not have even been using this muscle really. Maybe if you were doing a lot of Pilates, you had some experience in this drawing in maneuver, but a lot of people really just had no idea that this is something that you can do with your abdomen. So they're learning this for the first time after the muscles have been stretched and weakened, and so and you can't see it either. So really it can be quite challenging. And so if you know what it does, you know how it contracts, you know what you're looking out for, then it's your best way to get at this muscle, that it forms part of that inner core system, and that system that we use our breath with, the system that utilizes the pelvic floor. We end up getting all of these muscles working together, and in addition to that, then we can start building up the whole abdomen, all of the muscles there. Exactly. I always like to consider this as a foundation, and then I move on to the strengthening after you have this connection to the TA, to your breath, to the pelvic floor.
Yep. It's perfect. And that kind of, if you're good with that, that kind of segues into kind of our 5 best tips, just basically things of what they can do, because that is exactly it. You got to first learn how to feel your body, know what you're seeing, feel those muscles engaging, and then add on to it. And so tip wise, we just wanted to kind of go over some things that you can do, like looking at them, using the mirror, using your hands, things like that, so that you feel more confident in, am I doing this correctly? Okay. So Manira, I think you had some few tips that you wanted to share.
Yes, yes. In addition, I can see some questions.
Oh yeah, sure.
Before we finish, but yeah, so my best tips are basically a reiteration of what we just talked about. You want to do this in standing. At least get your baseline in standing. Don't do, like, the first thing that maybe you were doing before is kind of, okay, I'm gonna set some time in my day to practice connecting to my TA. So let me go, get my yoga mat down on the ground and let me lie down on my back and feel it. And what I'm hoping you're going to do now is actually switch that. Start in the standing position. Start in a position where you can see the movement of the abdomen. When you lie down, everything's basically already there and flat. So you have no visual ability there when you're lying down. So instead, you can do this on your side if the lying down position is better for you. So try it in standing. And if you're unable to practice this, and if you're unable to really get that full motion, inwards motion that you saw with LaShonda or in that video that I showed you, then let's change the position. Let's make it a little bit easier. Let's try sitting, get a mirror in front of you and do it there. Let's try it there. And if you're noticing still, I have one area that's not coming on as easily as the others, well, okay. Was it any easier in sitting than it was in standing? Well, that's a good thing. Maybe it was just a little bit better in sitting. Maybe you noticed a little less potential gripping through the top or just felt a bit smoother. Well, that's a great sign. And if you're still having difficulty with that, that's when I say, let's make it even easier. Change up the position. Let's go down on the ground. Let's do it in side lying. Spend a few minutes there. And usually between these 3 positions, and certainly you can try any other position out there, but usually between these 3 positions, one of them is going to be easier for you, where you notice, number 1, you're able to draw in more of the abdomen, more of the areas, and more fully. And number 2, you notice that there's less other strategies coming on at play. So that sucking in maneuver or the gripping through the top, so you notice that those go down and your engagement of the TA go up. So one improvement of one is still an improvement in going in the right direction.
Exactly. Yeah, those are perfect. Those are perfect. I think you actually kind of hit on pretty much all of our points. I think we did in between, like doing it, because I think I just mentioned just using that ha breath, right? Always remember to connect to your breath. That's going to reduce that sucking in a whole lot more. And so when we say sucking in, we're like talking about when you're, out on a date and you're just kind of pulling in your belly and you're walking around like that all day in fear of someone asking, are you pregnant? Or you don't want your diastasis to kind of stand out. And so we're sucking in our bellies throughout the day. And so again, just connecting to that breath. So when you're exhaling, just using I find that to be a little bit more gentle. And then if you want something a little bit more forceful and you're wanting to get more of that middle and upper to kick in a little bit more, then that or. And I personally, just from my experience with working with clients, I tell them to put their teeth together, because then that kind of traps the air and then it doesn't just go flying out of your mouth, right? So you go, it's like, it's gone. And then I find a lot of women suck in after that because the breath has left them so fast. I say putting their teeth together and just going, and try to get it to go as long as possible, because as long as that breath is going, then you can connect with those muscles a little bit more.
Yeah, exactly. And there were a few questions here that I was trying to, because they basically, you see them and then they disappear. So they just keep coming in. So one of the questions, can you scroll through? I can on my end. I don't know if you can on your end. So I can scroll through the comments to see everything in the day. How novice I am at Instagram.
There's a lot of stuff here. So I don't know how far we want to go on to this, but I do see some at the bottom.
One of the questions was about cueing for the middle and for the upper. So what I would suggest is, so some additional cues, okay? We have cues for the lower. For me, I often use a cue that says something like, okay, imagine you're pulling your abdomen away from your underwear. So you're thinking much lower down, okay? Not in and around the belly button. You're thinking low, down by the pubic bone, just like LaShonda was showing you where to feel for. You're thinking down there for lower. And for the middle TA, since that sort of encompasses the area around the belly button, you can just tell yourself to draw your navel in towards your spine. And so that could be a really helpful cue there, because again, we're trying to encourage some of that inwards motion and releasing. And then for the upper TA, again, it's that triangle right up the ribs here. From here, this is the lowest part of the rib, so that triangle that's formed from there and up to your sternum or your breastbone. So for the upper TA, it's basically the same thing. You could certainly say to yourself, okay, imagine your belly button is a little bit higher now. And imagine that you're drawing that new belly button in towards your spine. You could also use a cue like, imagine there's a string attached onto your belly button and someone is pulling that string backwards towards your spine. These are all just different ways of doing the same thing. Ultimately, it's less about the cue that you're using. It's more about what happens after you try to contract. What do you see? What do you feel? And so those are some examples. And LaShonda, I think you already talked about all of your ideas of using your breath in different ways, and that can certainly trigger certain parts of the TA as well. Another question that was here was the confusion over the connection between the pelvic floor and the TA, and they feel like they know how to engage their TA, but they don't really understand where the pelvic floor piece comes into play here. So I think that's the question.
Yeah, definitely. Sure. So basically more so just understanding, so going over the canister, the whole diaphragm thing, just to kind of bring it home, or just to make sure I'm answering the question, just how the pelvic floor plays into. So so in general, your whole entire core should be working together, right? You have your diaphragm that sits up top here. Let me see if I can angle. You have your diaphragm here, and then you have your pelvic floor way down here, but it's all working together. So when you're breathing, you're inhaling and you're exhaling, the diaphragm and the pelvic floor are working together. Right? And so the reason why you want to engage your pelvic floor is because it kind of starts off your whole core system to start working. All right. So when you squeeze or do like a Kegel and engage that pelvic floor, your lower TA and your pelvic floor kind of work together, just like your diaphragm and your pelvic floor work together. It's one big system that's made to work together. So if you can get that pelvic floor to engage, so again, that's a Kegel where you're squeezing and then a lift, that lifting feeling also helps naturally engage your lower TA if you're incorporating that with your breath. Is that answering the question, Manira? I want to make sure I got that. Okay.
Exactly. And you know what? It's actually, even in when you go into like certain research studies that look at how these muscles interact with one another, this is how this canister has sort of come up, is because they realize all of these muscles tend to work and turn on at the same time. So the diaphragm and the TA muscle, when someone does a particular task, these muscles actually work simultaneously. And they found a similar relationship between the pelvic floor and the TA. So when someone does an activity that's a bit challenging, the pelvic floor and TA tend to come on at the same time as well. And so there are these close relationships between all of these muscles. And there are also relationships between these muscles with the outer larger moving muscles as well. But when we're going internally and we're talking about this inner core canister, that pelvic floor at the bottom of the canister, it seems to have more of a close relationship with that lower TA than the middle and the upper. It's one way to kind of, I guess, anchor in that lower TA contraction. If you're trying your hardest to engage and you're just not noticing the inwards movement happening, one additional tip is to just try engaging your pelvic floor and then just watch what's happening down, again, near the underwear, way down by the pubic bone. And you will likely notice that there's some movement and activity happening there, which is basically the TA's response to the pelvic floor. It's a contraction that comes on with it. So you can certainly use that pelvic floor to help initiate the TA contraction as well.
Yep. Absolutely.
And it says, okay, okay, that cue helped a lot. I thought I have the belly button at the end. I thought of having the belly button at the end of the rib cage. Is this it?
Of the rib cage. You're saying for the upper, I think there. I think for engaging the upper. Imagine we said imagining the belly button being more at the top. Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So having it at the top of the rib cage, exactly. But I think, you know what, just because we're talking about the belly button, one thing that I'll just mention is when you're looking for looking at your core and your abdomen when you're trying to engage your TA, one thing you may see happen is your belly button moving and sliding up the whole abdomen up to the rib cage. So really, we've got this TA muscle that doesn't have too much ability to lift things upwards. There is a slight lifting action that can happen, especially in the lower and the middle, but it's very subtle. Again, the muscle isn't designed to do that much lifting, whereas the oblique muscles, the fibers of the muscle, they really have more pulling action like that to lift. So if you see your belly button sliding upwards or maybe even moving down too much, that's also another cue for you that potentially your oblique muscles might be coming on instead. So what you're looking for instead is for the belly button to draw backwards, back, and really not so much upwards. It could be a little bit upwards, but you're not looking for it to slide up because that's usually the obliques kicking in and pulling the whole abdomen. Okay, we'll maybe do a couple more questions and then and that's it. So it says, should we engage the 3 parts all together or separate training for lower, middle, and upper? Okay, I love this question. So I'll just say for this that when you're working on the areas that really you're finding the hardest time engaging in. So if you're finding that the middle part is the hardest for you, then you may spend some time just really only working on the middle, knowing that the upper and the lower will tend to come on as well. Just like we said, we can't really isolate the TA muscle from all of the other muscles that are there. They all tend to come on at the same time to some degree. We also can't really say that the lower can be isolated from the middle and from the upper. So typically everything will come on, but we can certainly add more to one of the areas depending on what we're seeing. So we can add some bias into what we're doing there. And so I think ultimately my approach is basically, let's aim for some uniform drawing in. And so sometimes that happens and we don't have to go in and be more specific. It just kind of happens. Sometimes some people will have a hard time with that lower part or the middle part. That's when I would typically go in and kind of fine tune that and get them to work on that lower part or that middle part, just so they get a little bit more practice and connected to that area. So does it have to all be done separately? No. I think if you're getting everything to draw in at once, that's basically the movement created by the TA, so you don't have to then separate things out.
Exactly. And I don't think I mentioned this earlier, but I know we wanted to say that as well, that you placing your hand on the muscle is one thing, but also placing your hand in the actual linea alba area as well to feel the tension happening. That too can give you feedback that, okay, my middle TA is firing. So if you're, again, going by the anatomy of it, if you're in the middle, placing your hand in the middle part of that tissue that runs all the way from your sternum all the way down to your pubic bone here. So if you're looking for the middle, you're right there. And then when you're engaging, do I feel tension here? That also gives you feedback, because when the muscle contracts, it places tension on the linea alba. So you should feel like a firming up, like a trampoline kind of feel. So instead of it being soft and just sinking my fingers down, you should feel like a lift up. like affirming up under your hands, and that can give you some feedback as well.
Yeah. Do you want to do one more question?
Sure.
Okay, so I think this is actually really important to mention here. It was that some studies say that the draw-in increases distance of the gap. So, okay, this is a really, really important point to talk about. Yes, when we are engaging the TA muscle, it will tension the linea alba. It will create this sort of pulling in, just like LaShonda was saying. It will create some tension where it takes up the slack in that linea alba. And so as a result, depending on also the position that you're measuring this in, a lot of the studies that, basically every study that I know is measuring this in the lying down on your back. Yeah, there's one study that measured the distance in standing, but it didn't really address this particular point. So usually when you're on your back, everything is quite lax. And when the TA muscle contracts, if that contraction kind of travels through the connective tissue and makes its way into the center, so it's pulling here and then pulling here and then pulling here and pulling here, it now has sort of transferred that force of contraction throughout the entire system from the muscle into its connective tissue, and then it reaches into the linea alba. So that tensioning action does happen that way. It does occur that way. So that's what tensioning is. The tensioning mechanism, by definition, it could potentially increase the size of the gap. And we are going to be talking about this in great length tomorrow. So if you want even more discussion about this, we'll talk about it tomorrow. But just briefly to kind of give a little bit of a teaser or preview here. When we're talking about the TA muscle, yes, it does that sort of, it does increase the size to some degree of the gap. And when we're talking about the oblique muscles, they will potentially tension in a different way and create some lengthening through the tissue as well. When we're engaging the rectus abdominis muscle, it may have a different effect as well, where typically it tends to reduce or narrow the size of the gap. But here's the thing, we're looking at this very microscopically right now, and we're saying this muscle does this and this muscle does that and then this one does this. When we're living our day-to-day lives, if we have our baby seat, our car seat, carrier beside us, we're going to bend down like this, rotate, flex. We're going to create some pressure inside. We've got our TA muscle working. We've got our oblique muscles working, our rectus muscles working. Everything is working at the same time. Some are going to tension, some are going to do this. They will all have a different effect on the linea alba. So what we need to do is, instead of looking at each specific muscle, look at what happens when we're just living our lives, where all of these muscles are always producing some kind of effect on the linea alba. Some of them tension, which is really what we want, and some of them have a little bit less of that tensioning. So it can really make people afraid to use the TA if you're only looking at the TA as one muscle and just what happens when that one muscle contracts. But it doesn't work like that in reality. It works with everything else at the same time. So it's the net effect of all the other muscles on the linea alba that could load up the linea alba. And what we need actually is loading. We need to continue to add load in addition to many other things, which again, we'll talk about either tomorrow or the next day. So I hope that clears up a little bit to at least reduce the fear around using your TA, because the TA muscle is really a muscle that I find is not being loaded enough in addition to the rest of the core. So
perfect. I thought that was perfectly explained.
Okay.
Awesome. Yes. So yes, some ingredients with that. Hand claps. Awesome. All right. Did you want to enter any more? Did you see any more that were, you probably scrolled a little bit further than I did. Yeah.
I think that's good. I think we're good for that.
Awesome. So our last bit of this is more so our call to action at the end. We want you mamas, even professionals, doing these things, right? Practicing it. That's what makes it great. It brings it all together. It makes it make sense to you, right? So our call to action is for you all, once this goes live, it will always, let me just say that it will be on my IGTV. So if you want to replay it, you absolutely can. And then tomorrow will be, Manira will be hosting it. And so then it will be on her IGTV, and then we'll be back to mine on Wednesday. All right. So our call to action is to practice this. All right. We don't want anyone to just get all this information, forget about it, and then forget, what did she say? Or what did that feel like? Let's practice these things. Okay. And so we're going to, if you want to actually take a snapshot of yourself practicing it, great. If you don't want to be in front of the camera, that's totally fine. Take a picture of your mirror and just say, listen to Manira's and LaShonda's Diastasis Recti talk today, and I'm going to practice these things. And the purpose behind the IGT stories is to bring awareness to Diastasis Recti, and that make other women feel like, okay, she has something here and it's normal, right? Like, she's working on it. There's a solution to this. So this could be for a newly postpartum mom that may be your friend, or your mom that had you 20 years ago, right? The great thing is that you can always make improvements to your core. So just seeing another person on their story saying, I'm taking 5 minutes, like take a picture of your timer and just put that timer up saying, I'm spending 5 minutes for myself as a mom, and I'm going to work on healing and improving my core, all right? And just tag both Manira and myself in that IG post, and we're going to just spread this message out to other moms and just encourage them, empower them, educate them, and hopefully encourage them to make it to day 2. You all make it to day 2, and we'll continue to learn together. So
and
that's our
topic for day 2. The topic for day 2, just to make sure, and to remind everybody, it's how to gauge improvements that you're making that span beyond the linea alba. And so that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow.
So exciting stuff. Yay!
Okay, bye everybody.
Yay! I hope you all have a great evening. We will see you tomorrow. Bye.